well, this is only one small setting.
No, we just talked to your family for crying out loud.
Oh, right.
You are obviously awesomely normal. So what on earth is that?
Good parents. Good parents. My parents love me. You know, they were messed up in their own way a lot of the time, but there was never any question that they loved me. And that is, I think really, you need food, shelter, clothing, you know, healthcare and a good education aren't such a bad thing, but basically, if you're raised with parents who love you, you're way ahead of the game. And a lot of the people I know who've gone through drug problems and other kinds of issues, or have their sense of identity way out of whack in terms of their work, or seeing themselves on posters on buses that drive by on the street, and then that's not happening and it messes them up. Usually they had some real struggles with their parents. There's several people that I know that have had those experiences. So I'm very, very blessed to have parents who love me and we're really emphasize the importance of education. I know in Elijah's case, his mother loves him so much and really has been just a great ally of his as he's making, even from the time he was a little boy, he would make choices to be an actor in certain movies. She guided him. It was weird. She found a cool balance between really letting him make decisions and have choices that he could take ownership of and live with the consequences of, but at the same time, she really guided him too. So that's it. I'm watching my wife do that with my daughters, and it's pretty extraordinary when you see it working well.
But they're not going to go into acting.
I don't know, Allie might. Allie's sort of in one right now. And I keep saying to her, you know, well, you can never go back. I mean, you can do another career. You can become a doctor, or a lawyer, or an astronaut, whatever you want to do, you know, an artist, whatever, a school teacher. You can do anything you want to do afterwards. But you will always, in the minds of millions and millions of people, be known for that thing you did. So you have to know that when you make this choice. And if you want to do it, I laid out a series. She really was aggressively lobbying to do that. And in fact, she said at one point, you know, she'd asked me if she could, she'd done these regional theater productions of Annie and Oliver and all the kind of traditional regional theater, community theater productions, and she was wonderful as like the fourth orphan in Annie. She was great, and she was in Peter Pan, and she was in all these great things. So it was fun to go and watch her. She developed such a confidence kind of on the stage, really loved the community of actors she was working with, which made me feel like, you know, I had passed a torch that had passed to me that's for thousands of years, you know, probably as long as we've been sitting around fires telling stories to each other. There's a sense of this sacred thing that you do, that you inhabit different emotions in front of people to help them laugh, to help them cry, to scare them, to do whatever. And so it's a very, actors have that feeling amongst each other. And I was raised with it, and it felt like it was being passed on to her on some level, watching her develop mostly a passion for the other actors she was with. And she would go and sit for 6 and 8 hours, barely doing anything herself, but supporting the other actors. And then when it was time to do her bit, she'd get up and do her bit and then go. And I remember seeing her kind of fiercely defensive about that at one point when I said something, and I thought, wow, look at that. And so they brought some agents there, and she said, Dad, you know, they brought some agents, and they pulled a couple of us aside, and they want to know if I want an agent. I said, nope. She said, well, why not? I said, well, why do you want to do it? And her best friend is McKenna. And she said, well, McKenna, you know, she's doing it. I said, yeah, that ain't good enough. That's not a good enough reason for me. In this family, you can't. I mean, you have to know that you don't walk into a room and have a clean slate. Unfortunately, for better or worse, you walk in and there will be a level of, I don't know what it is, you know, different focus or different attention. You know, maybe it'll go away after a moment and it'll just be about the work. And I said, you know, the other thing is you've got Girl Scouts and soccer, you're on the student council, you've got, you know, your schoolwork, you've got this reading club that she was a part of. She had all these things, and I'm like, you can't do any of that if you work. And she, you know, like me when I was a kid, she said, well, I can do this and that. She said, we live kind of far out of town, Ellie. If you're doing a job, you can't like go and come back. It's too far. It will be it could be a great experience. It could be really meaningful for your whole life, you know, and you know, you could make money doing it, but you know, it will absolutely be at the expense of some of this other stuff that you're doing and that you're really excelling at. And she asked me a couple more times, and I just said, you know what, based on what I'm seeing and hearing, and I always said I would evaluate. You know, people ask me in these kind of settings a million times, will you let your kids act, will you support it, will you encourage it? And I always said the same thing, like, well, it depends. I'll look at them and evaluate for myself at that time and what I think is in their best interest. It's my job as a parent to do that. So I remember, there you go. So, you know, and I said, my evaluation right now with you, it's not right for you right now. You don't seem ready for it. You're not doing it for the right reasons. And then, I'll never forget this. She's sitting in the back seat in the car one day, and it's just the two of us. And she said, Dad, and I adjust the mirror so I can look at her. She said, you've told me throughout my entire life that anything I wanted to do, anything I wanted to be, you would do whatever you could to help me. And now I'm telling you that this is something I really want to do, and you're not helping me. She's probably 10. She's like 1,000 years old. She's an elf. She's clearly an elf. She's been around for a long time. So I said, all right, well, let me think about it. And I went upstairs and I got on my computer and I started kind of really focusing on like, what is it that I want? What, you know, they love every romantic comedy that comes out. They love the romantic comedies. I mean, anything with, you know, Sandra Bullock or Ashton Kutcher or whoever it is, and all of them I think are great. But you know, once in a while I'd like to see an action picture or see, you know, some other kind of movie. You know, let's watch the classics. I tried to get them not this summer, but the summer before, to watch all of the Academy Best Picture winners. Like let's go right through the beginning. Let's go through it. Well, you would have thought I was like ripping their arms off. I didn't want to do that. So what I realized was I just wanted it not to be, what's the word, incidental or superficial or like light. It's like, I want it to be important. She said, but I want it to be fun. I'm like, I want it to be fun too, but I just look at you and I want there to be a little more gravity in your relationship to this thing. And I said, I recognize that might just be my baggage, and I might just have to let that go. But, you know, if you're going to adjust your life, because you're this third generation kid, I'd like you to, I'd like you to have a sense of context and perspective about what you're doing. So I made a list. I put together a syllabus.